Today on Gamer's Couch,
XCOM, the board game. The video game?
the board game.
The board game. The movie, the board game. The video game.
Hi guys! Happy Sunday!
Hello!
Welcome to this very special episode of Gamer's Couch, because we have a very dear friend and fellow gamer as our very first guest
Hello.
on the couch. This is Bruce, and yeah, he will join us talking about the adventures that we took with XCOM, the board game, last night.
How topical of us to bring a friend when we start talking about a game that is mostly about...
Killing friends!
naming your troops after friends and having them killed.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the XCOM computer game, so I was very, very excited to try to get a chance to play the board game.
Yeah, that was very cool last night. So if you're new to the channel or the vlogs, just to let you know, we go into gameplay and rules first, then talking about the likes and dislikes of the game, and then any funny stories, experiences that we had with the game. So, husband, please explain.
Whew, where to start?
And we sip coffee.
Welcome to the wonderful world of XCOM, where we will defend Earth against an alien invasion by a multitude of alien races. Each of us will take on the role of a specific, surprise role, being four altogether, namely the commander, what is the other one? The operational officer or something like that? I always forget. The central officer.
Central.
The science officer, and last but not least, the squad leader. All covering different aspects of this game, from something as boring as bureaucracy and budget management, up to the exciting how to send soldiers into battles to fight aliens by throwing dice at their heads.
I think budgeting is very exciting, especially given the consequences of failing to do it properly.
Yeah.
That is
We
not
don't
related
look at
at all
anybody.
to me being the one who did the budget in one of the games.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at where we are playing. Since we are defending Earth, and I have to figure out where it's up. Since we're I'm sorry. Since we're defending Earth, to nobody's surprise, we have a map of Earth,
Hey,
at least
have the science by me again.
several parts of Earth. And as Bruce already noted, there's all those different sides and stations to them that kind of correspond with your role. So there's the science station for the science officer. Down here are the spaces where you place missions and your troops to fight them. Down here is your panic. Well, down there is your panic track, because if you don't defend Earth, people will panic. I don't know how that happens. Everybody's very calm and collected around here all the time. So, it might actually happen that players are panicking during the game. And last but not least, there's also the guy who's in charge of the satellites, the central officer, taking care of those things here. Of particular note, these two tracks, they're there because they're horrible to point at.
We call them the fun tracks.
The fun tracks, yes. So this one is the health bar of your base. If it goes down, well, that was a short game, you lose. And up here is the threat tracker, which is an interesting mechanic that comes into play on how to actually solve all these different tasks that we're going to be doing. On average, or in general, I would say all those tasks are very comparable. So it doesn't really matter if you shoot an alien or shoot down a UFO, or if you research something in science. It all comes down to rolling these beautiful blue dice that...
Don't do that when I want to drink coffee.
These blue dice that pretty much just have two sides. One has a success symbol on them, and actually two sides with a success symbol on them, and four sides that have blanks on them or being failures. So whatever you do in whatever task you try to complete, you want to roll successes. For the most basic ones, one is enough. Some ways require you to have more than one, and you just try to roll these icons all the time. And also every station kind of has the same notion of the more resources you commit, the more dice you're able to roll. So let's say you try to shoot down a UFO that spawns somewhere across the map, and you commit 2 or 3 fighter planes interceptors to that, you may roll 2 or 3 of these blue ones. However, you always have to roll the nasty red die, which is an 8-sided die, and that one corresponds to that threat level tracker we just showed you, starting at 1, going up to 5. As long as you roll higher as that number that is currently selected, you are good to go. If you roll equal or lower, it is a loss, and you would lose your soldier, or lose your satellite, or lose your interceptor. Whatever resources you committed, you cannot use them this round anymore, and even worse, you probably cannot use them the next round either, because they're kind of exhausted.
Or you might even need to recruit new soldiers or build new interceptors, which gets back to that budget.
Yeah. The really evil part is, since you may feel overconfident, you can roll as many times as you want. The only penalty for each roll is that the threat tracker will advance 1 higher and then sit on 5 being the highest, until you roll equal or lower to the threat tracker, or you just stop and feel, well, it's worth having aliens over Africa because, well, that's...
Looks beautiful.
Yeah, that fits the scenery kind of thing.
It's only 5 saucers. How
Yeah,
bad
come
could
on.
it be?
Yeah, these very, very intelligent choices to be made. So each roll comes with a little set of tools or cards or tokens attached to that. So the science officer has little science dude tokens and actual cards that enhance the other stations. So the science officer essentially chooses which development to develop from his hand. I think 6 is always what you have.
Yeah, you always drop to 6.
Choose which one, and these also note how many successes you need to be able to do that, and then go once developed to the station. So this one is something for the chief scientist, because science bears science. This one would go to the central officer and give him an additional action.
The scientist is definitely a support role, but it's a vital one because you're enhancing everybody's ability to perform missions and defend Earth. And choosing what to do, trying to get it out in a timely fashion can make a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
And taking a closer look at one of the other roles, so let's take a look at the squad leader. Almost every role has at least 1, or in this case 4 cards that hold the resource tokens. In the squad leader's case, the resource tokens are these beautiful blurry minis. No, they're looking really, really nice.
They did a wonderful job on the components in this game.
And these are kind of the storage spaces for those. So you have 1 for satellites, 1 for interceptors, and so on. Also, every role comes with a little card that reminds you what your job is.
In case you forget.
It's not that difficult. And 1 or more of these asset cards, which are like your permanent abilities that are always available to you. So the science officer's job, just to jump back and forth to confuse you, is to give you additional of these ability cards that can be used during the game. And that can be either used in a timed phase, and we'll get to that in a moment, or the resource phase, depending on what the card has in terms of symbol over here. Other stuff, the other role in here is the commander, whose main job is, as we already said, budget. And everything you use or assign to the board costs money. Every scientist, every soldier, every interceptor, every satellite. It is quite simple to keep track of that, because at some point you'll be asked to check your budget. You simply count everything that's on the board. And if you have enough money to pay for it, that's good. If you have more money, that's even better, because you can buy stuff from that. If you don't have enough money, well, economy is angry and sad for you, because then people will panic, because no money generally means panic everywhere. So it's a really bad thing to happen. And last but not least, the central officer, who is the guy who reads what's going to happen to you in the first place, but also is in charge of the satellites and committing them to fight against UFOs that are in orbit. Don't ask. These satellites seem to be like kamikaze satellites that fly into UFOs. Otherwise, it'll be difficult to explain how they actually shoot down UFOs from orbit. But
Lasers.
Yeah.
yeah, rainbow guns
Imagination. Come on.
Lasers.
doing that. Yeah.
Rainbow lasers.
Yeah, rainbow lasers are cool.
That kind of also brings us to the point of how do you win or lose in that game. You lose once every country or one of the countries one of the continents is in full panic mode. So that track, if someone goes to the full
Two.
Two.
Yeah. Someone read the rules. It's not me.
Well, it might be interesting to note there are actually no written rules. There's a quick start guide. Which really talks about components and then tells you to fire up the tutorial on the app.
The digital future.
But that is not a board game.
But we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Yeah. Actually, someone has to get up and get something to show you the app, which with foresight we did not bring because we won't be getting professional anytime soon with that. All right.
Magic of YouTube. We do have the app.
See the glare? You don't see anything. Now you see something.
Wow, that's the magic of iPads.
Yes. So the app essentially is the game master for this game, telling you what to do, when, and the central office's job is to look at this and shout at other people and tell them what they need to do. You start this thing and essentially say how many players are in the game. Let's say we are 3 at this point in time. Start the thing, you select the difficulty, and it comes with a tutorial, which I think we talk about in the experiences thing.
Section.
So the tutorial is kind of the manual that supposedly walks you through everything. And so after you select the difficulty, then the next thing is to select your overall mission type. There's a handful of those, and handful meaning literally a handful. So.
Well, you've got big hands.
Which start face down. Every mission or big mission card has actually is it objective or was it? It's an invasion plan. Yeah, comes with with an escalation thing that whenever your base takes this or that amount of damage, something bad will happen, and that's different. So this one will spawn 2 UFOs every time that happens. The next one increases panic in each continent by 1. And another one starts killing soldiers. So you kind of get the gist of it's either bad in terms of panic or it's bad in terms of killing resources off the board and making you pay for them again. Once you get into the final phase, these are flipped over, and that is kind of the final boss mission, and you need to beat that mission to actually win the game, and that is the only way, sadly, to win the game. So at the end, at the beginning, you select which mission you want to go on, then go for next, and depending on the mission type, the app will tell you what kinds of enemies will appear in the game. There's a plethora of enemies available. These are all sorted in these small cards. There's different varieties of the aliens available, and again, some just come with kind of how many successes do you have to roll to get rid of them. Others require more than 1 success, or even come with little text that require you to do some other things. So this Thin Man says, when this enemy is killed, spawn a new enemy in its spot. And that is super annoying. And like the video game, the Thin Man is very annoying.
I think there are 8 or 9 different types of aliens, and they mirror what you're going to find in XCOM Enemy Within.
Yeah.
Or Enemy Unknown.
Yeah, it's the same kind of racial setup thing where you typically have sectoids with sectoid commanders and ethereals and stuff.
Mutons, Muton Elite, etc., etc.
So after that, we are almost done. The app will randomly tell you which continent is your headquarter location, which is actually important for I think it's the commander role that gets the special card. So one of the asset cards you get depends on which continent you're on. If you're familiar with the video game, in the video game you also select which continent your base is on, and you get a bonus from that country. It's either more money or cheaper Sky Rangers and stuff like that. This is very similar in terms of you get an asset card with a very unique ability that is tied to the continent, and you can typically use that ability as long as that continent hasn't panicked or done anything bad. Also, the app will tell you...
Ow!
That's
Oops.
actually...
That was my foot. Ouch! And that was
Don't
the
do
iPad.
that with your iPad.
Yeah.
The app will tell you the panic levels, which are slightly erased to my right side. So you have these little markers on the board that look like the continents, which are not as easy to parse for someone who's kind of inept with geography like me.
He's still learning.
Or has some severe eye issues with pattern matching. So you set that up, and after everything has been told to you, you get to start the thing and begin round 1. Every game consists of a 2-phase approach, where you have a time phase that has you under the clock. You have to do everything on a countdown timer, and if you don't, bad things happen to you. Let's put it that way. And after that, there's a pause happening with the resolution phase, where whatever you planned, you try to, act out and defeat all those things. So you could say the time phase is the setup for what you want to do this turn, and the resolution phase is where you actually get to roll dice and try to finish tasks. So let's start this round. It'll remind you that it's always taking 5 seconds to actually deploy the thing, and let me pause here. So this will typically say something like, do this action and the role that's affected. In this case, it says new technology available, chief scientist, and how much time is left. That's 8 seconds in this phase.
It's pretty easy. You're drawing cards.
Yeah, meaning the chief scientist draws up to 6 cards in his hand, and whenever he's done, he says so done, and the central officer clicks on done. Now, one thing in general for that, you can pause at any time, but you have a limited pause budget. So you can pause during that phase to talk about decisions. However, you don't have infinite time for that. You can regain pause budget by finishing tasks quickly. So if you have time left when you hit done button, that goes onto your budget and can be spent for other things. And then it goes on. It says the commander gets 11 credits. So you discard credits each turn, you get a full new budget and kind of have to make way with that budget, which is actually quite nice. So you don't have to carry over money and care about that. After that, it's assigned research. You have 3 different laboratories, so you can set up to 3 cards and for research and
assign scientists.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Then there's a crisis happening, and so there's these little evil cards, and whenever a crisis happens, the commander draws 2, discards 1, and chooses the other. That's it's almost like which of your child has to die, that kind of situation to decide. So this one, just for reference, says spawn 2 UFOs in a continent that has not fallen into panic, and these are all kind of the kill soldiers, more panic increases here. There's no good crisis, it appears.
That would not be a crisis.
Yeah.
Correct. And then UFOs are detected, and as you may be able to see, this has a red border similar to the crisis card. So the red ones are the alien movements happening during this phase. You have to do them, you can't back out of them, and you kind of get even worse things happening to you if you let the timer run out. In this case, UFOs detected, it simply shows you on the world map up here where to place 2 new UFOs. Then the squad leader gets to choose a mission. We have only talked about 1 mission card so far. These are this invasion plan final mission things, but there's a small set of mission cards available here as well. And again, the squad leader typically draws 2 cards and then decides which one to keep and which one to, place and then maybe engage in. Mission cards are always set up the same way by having symbols down below, and we haven't really talked about how to resolve that, but I'll get to that soon. As well as these empty spaces that are filled in with just draw an alien and place it on here, and once you engage in the mission or once you deploy troops, those will be flipped over that's kind of a way to keep things interesting and not give you a hint up front what kind of soldiers you may want to send to that mission. Also, missions, once you complete them, give you a bonus, and that can be pretty much everything. In this case, it says Chief Scientist researches one tech from his or her hand, so actually pretty good. Or reduce panic in country, get money, and so on and so on.
Completing missions is also a way that they control the game clock. The faster you complete missions, the faster you'll unlock the invasion plan mission, which is what you need to do to win the game. So you really want to pound those things out as quickly as possible.
Yep. So after choosing a mission, we continue, and it says enemy in the base. Enemy in the base is very similar to the choose mission thing in terms of you draw an alien, put it on the board, and you could say the base defense is just another mission on the board that is exclusive to, defending the mission. The thing there is, if you succeed, there's no benefit, but if you fail, your base takes damage and kind of...
There's a slight benefit. Every alien you defeat becomes a resource. It becomes salvage, which the scientists could use for to power up various cards.
Yeah. So the next thing here is deploy squad to mission, which then essentially means the squad leader picks which soldiers to send where. And in fact, that might be a good way to explain how this works. So the squad leader has 4 different types of troops available to him: assault, support, sniper, and heavy. Each different class has its own mini, its own gorgeous-looking mini, I might say, and also each class comes with 2 types of symbols. There are 4 types of symbols overall, and to actually have a soldier or have one of those troops be engaged in a mission, they have to match at least one of the symbols. So, looking at this mission card, the second mission says. That's a terrible icon to explain. So the third mission has a small explosion icon and the fist bump icon over here. Looking at my troop cards, the assault guy has the icon that's difficult to explain plus the explosion. The support one has the fist bump and the sniper symbol. The heavy has the explosion and the fist bump. So what I could do is I could send one heavy to that and maybe one support guy to fill both slots to finish that mission. And as we said earlier, the more resources you commit, the more dice you have. So if you are able to commit 2 soldiers to this mission, you would get 2 blue dice for rolling that. You might even get a bonus. Some of them have a yellow corner around them, and if you send the correct troop to that one, so the first one is always yellow on here, that gives you an additional die.
You also, when you're assigning soldiers, you're actually assigning to the mission in general, and then you allocate them, and you need to work right to left, left to right.
From one side to the other.
From one side to the other in order to do the things.
Yeah.
The wicked thing, I think, about the missions is the threat meter doesn't reset after each task in a mission. So if you do the first one and you get it done, that's great. The second one, your threat's definitely going to be a 2 or even higher, depending. And by the time you get to the third one, if you're trying to do it all in one team, you're really pushing your luck.
Oh yeah.
On that.
And sometimes it can work, and sometimes not.
And the consequence of failure means that your soldiers are going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, you lose, whenever you fail, you essentially use whatever resources are committed to that particular task. That also, the threat not being reset for each task counts for everything that involves aliens, so base defense works the same way, where the threat keeps being high wherever you are. So, after you deployed your squad to missions, the next thing here would be assign another research card. So eventually you will go through all 3 labs and assign research to those labs and scientists to those labs, assign soldiers to the mission, assign soldiers to base defense, assign interceptors to fight off UFOs that land or are hovering above continents, assign satellites to orbit to fight UFOs that are in orbit.
Draw 6 crisis cards.
Draw the occasional crisis card in between, and eventually, after playing a couple of rounds and depending how successful you are on completing missions, it'll say final mission. by the way, don't be fooled by the order of things that happened here. So that seems to be like the rough order by what you would expect them to be. However, if you have a lot of UFOs in orbit, they scramble your communications network, and that will move those phases around. So you might be forced to commit soldiers to a mission without actually knowing what the mission will be, or something similar to that extent.
Yeah, the app is keeping track of everything that's going on. You're inputting data, and it's altering events and spawning events based on the condition of your board and of your game state.
Yeah. After you have no hair left, or I'm quickly tapping through the time phase. The time phase ends. Any time that you have left now can be used to play your asset cards, specifically. The ones that have a little clock on them can only be played during that time phase. This one says, discard one salvage, place a budget token money thing on the emergency funding asset card. So that would be something the chief scientist can do, but only during the time phase. You can do the timed cards at any time during the time phase, but typically you're busy with other things. So it's nice to have a breather at the end to make a decision before going into the resolution phase, which is the next one and comes with a nice Sky Ranger flying back. So you start. These 14 steps are always in the same order. There's no surprises there. It's always take a look at your budget. If you're over budget, or if you're under budget with whatever you have deployed, you get panic spreads. If you have money over budget left, you can spend that to recruit interceptors and soldiers. And it literally, the app tells you everything I'm telling you now, just in a more long form. Then the chief scientist gets to resolve research, and that is one of many steps where you have to do those tasks checks. So really, the way that works is you have one card in the lab. This one would say, well, you need one success. Then let's say Bruce was the chief scientist. Who would have guessed? And he assigned one scientist to that. So he would take one blue die and the red die and start rolling until either he hits the success and then can hand out the card to himself in this case, or he just keeps on rolling until he has a success, or he does not want to roll anymore, or the red die rolls higher than the threat. When he goes to the next lab, threat is reset to 1, so he gets a fresh chance at the second research thing. And so it continues with the satellites. It's always the same. If you have 3 satellites committed to orbit, you roll 3 dice. For each success, you remove 1 UFO. If you don't manage to remove all UFOs, those that are in orbit will increase panic in particular continents, and also go onto the continents in the next turn, so they stay there. Permanence in general is a thing, so science cards that the scientist, for example, is not able to develop, but already have at least 1 success on them or 2, those stay there for the next turn. So you have a research progress throughout the game, and that is similar to other things. Then the commander tries to shoot down more UFOs with the interceptors, and again, depending how many you have committed, that's how many dice you can roll. And the squad leader starts with the base defense. As we said, you assign a pool of up to 4 soldiers to the base defense or a mission, and then select from that pool how many soldiers you want to commit to an alien. You can always only commit as many soldiers to an alien depending on the icons that are on here. Most have 2, some have 3. I haven't seen any that have 4.
Yeah, there was one I think that had 1. Or one that we saw.
Yeah. So while you can assign 4 soldiers, that doesn't guarantee you 4 dice fighting every alien. The same. Then the question comes up: was the base destroyed? Hopefully, you say no, because if it was destroyed, you would lose the game at this point and get the game over screen. And you resolve a mission, which is very similar to the base defense. If you have progress on that mission, that progress stays on the mission until you continue it next time, or you can replace the mission next time. That's up to you. If you finish the mission, or after you're done with the mission, the app asks you how many countries are in which state of panic, which directly affects the budget for next turn. And last but not least, it'll ask you if you completed a mission. If you say yes, apparently nothing happens, but it seems that there's a counter or a timer in there, as Bruce already said. The more missions you complete, the earlier the action will come saying, now flip over the final mission, it is available. And that's just a second mission that you can assign troops to, which you kind of want to do because completing the final mission then ends the game. And that was quite a lot to take in, I think.
Yeah, we're in the third section, so around 30 minutes.
Yeah, so just to summarize, you have different roles with different things, but they all kind of do the same thing because these tasks that you do, these checks to win at them, all boil down to roll the dice, have as many successes as you want, and don't have the red die, roll whatever the threat counter is saying. And keep on doing that and surviving until the final mission unlocks, and if you win that, you win the game.
So, what did you like about the game or disliked about any components, any mechanics, anything?
I've been talking so much. It's his
I'll
job.
talk, I
Yeah,
guess.
sure.
We brought someone to be shot first.
Wow.
If you don't like what he has to say.
I really like the escalating tension in the game. It's a great big juggling act, and just even though we were playing on easy mode where the timer wasn't active, we were trying to play as though the timer mattered on that, and having to make these decisions very quickly was a lot of fun and brought a lot of good tension. And during the resolution phase, trying to make sure that, well, as we had allocated enough resources and then hoping that we got the good die rolls we needed to keep the UFO population down, to get the research, it was crazy. On our second game, the non-tutorial game, we won by the skin of our teeth. And that very much, to me, felt like the XCOM game on that.
Yeah.
I really like the push your luck mechanism of the alien die. There are some techs and abilities you could get out there to try to mitigate that a little bit, a couple times around. But it's really that, okay, I could go one more time, but then if I do, we're going to lose our interceptors, and then we won't have any left next turn. It was, I think, really good on that. The scientist, the role I was playing for the games we did, was definitely a support role. Most of the management is happening during the time phase, choosing what to resource. But it really felt like I was contributing to the game, that I was enhancing our ability to succeed. Yeah. And you're so wrapped up in watching those resolution phases as it's going on that you're not just sitting around playing with your phone.
You're cheering for the other people.
You're very much doing that. Yeah. So I've got a confession. XCOM is one of my favorite computer game franchises, and I think Eric Lang really captured the spirit of the game and made something that's fun to play. Component-wise, I wish they had color-coded the panic markers and the continents, so they'd be a little bit quicker and easy to get. That's like really my only big complaint. I think the app integration is really great. You're paying attention to the board. You're not paying attention to the app. It's not one of those where you could say, well, why do we have the board game anyway? But it's a very good solution to how do I make this game feel different every time without a whole bunch of random cards to pick or some game master having to moderate it.
I'd say the state of the game is on the board, not in the app. The app is just the engine that drives the board
that
state.
you don't forget any steps while you play. And it's pretty much, it feels like the app for Space Cadets, the co-op game, where you just have the timer instead of the manual clock. It's just nice.
It is. I'd say it's on the level of having a companion app on steroids. Then again, you couldn't play this game without the app. So let's be clear. It's unlike a game like Alchemist, where there's a backup way of playing the game. So you require that to be there. But that being said, it makes everybody focus on the game. And I thought the game was played quite quickly. So didn't you say it's 2 hours?
I think they say between 1 and 2 hours on the box.
And we played 120. Do I remember correctly?
120 on the first one, and the second one, it felt like it went very quickly.
Yeah, Yeah.
So we played with 4, and nobody was knowing what they were doing, and I would assume we had less than 2 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
So the second one we played with the scenario we picked was the misdirection scenario, and it was brutal because we like 6 times around you're picking these terrible crisis cards and having to make this choice between bad and worse or worse and worse.
Yeah.
And it was just a gut punch every round. It's like, are we going to be able to survive this? And if we had not got to the final mission when we did and managed to pull it off, and that was due to some good resource allocation and just some use of some resources that techs and other abilities that we had down there, and just some good die rolling, we would have lost the next turn.
Yeah.
I'd almost say every game we played of that, and even within the game multiple times, it came down to single die rolls with everybody
like
sitting at the table being really tense and cheering when and I think that's something that's not that easy to pull off, to get everybody as engaged and have it being down to that one roll.
So I never played the video game, so I did not have any comparison. I just heard stories while we played about how things work on the video game. So I really like that the game draws you in, though you don't really know the universe or the backstory from any video game, and it seems to be very well made and really a good version of the video game if you know it. So those 2 guys played it like forever when I'm talking about the video game here, and they didn't complain about things being left out that are very important to build the world and the tension and whatnot. So I think that was something that I liked a lot about the game, though I never had the experience of playing the video game. And I actually like the music on that.
Yeah, I was about to say, so here's one of my very, very big plus points. That thing, if you start it... I'm sorry that I... you may be familiar with the sound that you're maybe not hearing at all, but if you start...
The mic should pick it up.
If you start the mission, you have heard that jingle, and that brings up, at least to me, so many really good memories of wasted nights sitting in front of my screen trying to keep my guys alive and walk through the missions. It's uplifting, and
they weren't wasted.
No,
they were entertaining.
Right.
And yeah, Sarah's right. The game hits a lot of the high points, and they don't have like a full promotion upgrade scheme for the soldiers, although that's you can make soldiers elite through the use of one of the abilities. They don't have psionics. They don't have a robust base defense yet. But as a game designer, I could see those are all things that you could add in with expansions to kind of enhance the gameplay. But right now, this game is nice. I'm going to call it, actually, for what it is, fairly streamlined. It looks very fiddly, as a friend of mine commented when I posted a picture on Facebook, but it's not. It plays very smoothly.
Yeah.
And I think that's mostly to the app guiding you through everything. And it
takes away a couple of tokens that you might have had on the board if there would not be an app. Just a tracker or something.
And surprisingly, for a game that comes with no manual, well, that's not fair because there's actually a manual on the app, but I think we didn't really have something that we got wrong on the first try right away.
The tutorial
there was
quite
one
good.
or two questions like, oh, do I have to put budget in for this or that? And but the obvious answer was the correct one. So they did a really, really good job with the tutorial thing, walking you through everything. It's almost like it can't beat having someone sitting at the table who knows the game and can explain to you, but it's almost on that level of you know what you're doing afterwards.
Yeah. And I really liked the tension thing, that it kind of dials down a bit while you have the resolution phase, so you can take a deep breath before you go into full tension mode again. So I'm not too keen on having that all the time. I need to have a breather in between. And the timing between tension and more of the calmer phase is just perfect. It wasn't too long. The resolution phase wasn't too long, so you didn't doze off pretty much. And everybody has to do something, so there's not very much downtime for all the different players, either in tension or calm phase. So I really like the balance of these two phases.
If you were sitting there waiting for a science fiction themed game that is timed but does not involve the programming of Space Alert, this is your game.
Yeah.
So that it has the same tension, the same kind of flow with having a timed segment where everybody is super tense, and then a resolution phase where everybody's laughing at how bad you were at rolling dice, and doing all that stuff. I also, what I like about this is that the roles feel very different, and that is surprising because you could be cynical about this and say every role eventually does the same thing because all the tasks, all the checks work out the same way. You roll those 2-3 dice and then see if you succeed or not. But it feels different because you are in charge of the satellites. You are in charge of the interceptors.
The decisions you're making are different for each of the roles.
Yeah.
Your intent of the role is different, even though you're all working towards a common goal, and that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah. And I really like the threat push your luck thing. I could see they could have gone an easy path by just saying, well, this is a number you have to roll on this one, and if you succeed rolling that number, then that's done, which is in there. But a very similar ability as to Pandemic the Cure, where you can just keep on rolling, and eventually you will lose something. But it feels almost like there's some kind of skill involved, although there's no skill involved in rolling dice at all in this particular thing. Yeah, but it's those are the cheering moments are not only about having successes, they are also about having the threat die not roll something that makes you actually lose things. So it's almost like having two amazing die rolls combined in one for that matter.
That was when we started the first round with the tutorial, so I was the squad leader, and I was kind of, well, not disheartened, but like, what? My threat level doesn't go down after I completed a mission? It's like, what the fuck? How am I supposed to get that? But you're definitely able to succeed quite nicely, so there is a chance, although it seems way more difficult for the squad leader than for the other stations, but you just got the good guys, and you're really you have great resources, so that kind of balances the threat level there.
I've got to say, we played this on the easy mode, and I shudder to think what the more difficult levels are going to be like.
We are going to die.
Much like the computer game in that way. Where
there's hardcore classic.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because if they escalate the crises, more UFOs, fewer resources. Oh my gosh.
Well, I might imagine that could be the reason why we played under 2 hours. It could be that the high difficulty just keeps on. You have to complete more missions until the final one unlocks.
Or you have to make your decisions faster.
Yeah, that's
actually, sorry for interrupting, that's something that I like as well, that the app forces you to decide quickly. So no analysis paralysis when you play that game, because you just can't have it.
Yeah.
It's nice.
And the game does some things you cannot do without an app. And that is like this reshuffling phases, keeping things interesting, randomizing the entire thing. You can do that to some extent. With Space Alert, you have something like different audio tracks, but those are always the same different audio tracks. Here, it's like, communication is scrambled, and it is an entire surprise what's going to happen the next turn, because, well, that's up to you to find out, and that's something you can only do with the app. So if you're kind of on the fence of getting into a game that requires an app, don't worry about this one. It is not a video game. It is very much a board game, although it is another, for our this year discussion about video game adaptations on board games, another one that gets really high marks from me, because I like the video game a lot. So there's a high potential for being disappointed, to put it that way. And I really enjoy this. It's tense, it's exciting, it's cheery, and everybody's involved. Maybe the only complaint, and that is a very difficult complaint to have, because the video game doesn't have that either that much as if you're looking for lore, background theme, and all that, it's very light on that. It has pretty pictures. They're all the pictures you know from the video game, so if you're familiar with the video game, you may get out everything you want from that. If you're not familiar with this thing at all, and maybe Sarah, you can say something to that, but I would feel it's like, well, yeah, there are dudes here, dudes with small guns, dudes with big guns. I don't really see the difference if you're not coming from a point of view. Yeah, that's the sniper. The sniper is like the best class you can have.
We unpacked the minis, and I said, "Oh, I like the heavy," not knowing anything about the game yet. He just looks nice, and he's got the bazooka. So come on, what's not to like?
I mean, the
but
theme
I like
is certainly,
the artwork.
Yeah, the theme is certainly there, but there's not a lot of fluff text on the cards.
No, but I think with this fast kind of game that it is, you don't have time to read fluff. Yeah. And I think nobody will read fluff before or after you finished a game. So there's no space for it, no place, no need for it, I think. I mean, the artwork and the soundtrack helps to get into the universe and into the world, and I mean, the minis help along as well, so I think it's enough. I didn't feel as if you could paint any theme on that kind of game. It was very much human versus alien. So I think it it got the theme well. I wouldn't see it with medieval theme.
Well, I could imagine that you could put a war game theme on this with research defending against, but it is a game about invading or defending against an invasion in one capacity or another. Yeah. And if you want more lore, I'm pretty sure that the internet has an entire poem collection.
Otherwise,
of
write your own
you,
fan fiction. I mean, who's stopping you to write?
XCOM/fiction. It leads to a whole new realm of
horror.
boy.
No. So, shall we go to rating? How do you rate this game in your very personal...
No, I let the guest...
I put this one at about an 8 on the 10-point scale. I've been anticipating for a year. It satisfied my desires, and it's definitely going to find its way into my collection.
That's a good one. Honey?
Yeah, this gets 1 ethereal out of 3 sectors.
And now you know what I mean. Well, from 1 to awesome... It's awesome. So it's a solid 10 there, and it will be getting a lot of playtime in this household. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I love the fact, too, that you could play it solo. And don't do it. It's going to be really difficult, though, if you do. This is one game where the level of difficulty ratchets it up the fewer players you have on it.
Yeah, there was really a difference between 3 and 4 players. It's amazing.
Yeah. And just to mention how that works, if you play with fewer players, someone has to do double duties, or in terms of a single-player game, you have to do quadruple duties, and take care of all the roles and handle all that. You get more time for that, it seems, but... I was the one who did the central officer and the commander, which is kind of the suggested setup if you're playing with 3. You have one play those 2 roles. And it is quite demanding to keep track of that. Maybe I'm just bad at multitasking in that fashion, but even have someone else place the UFOs or do something to help out with that. So I'd be horrified playing this solo.
On hardcore.
on one of the harder modes, or even on the easy mode. Maybe it's less worse than I think it is, but this game really very much, I'd say 4 players is the sweet spot for that thing. Maybe 2 players is also nice.
We gotta try that at one
3
point.
players might be weird.
Yeah. Because with 2 players, you both have the double load, so just the way you play and the way you time might be a bit more balanced.
Yeah,
we gotta try.
I could go out on a stretch and say that this is the better multiplayer game compared to the video game, but I never played the multiplayer parts of the video game, so per definition, this has to be better for me.
Yeah, very true. So, are we wrapping up? Anything that we forgot? Anything you want to mention? Any funny stories? Anything?
Most of those were again quite anecdotal, but we had a couple of those where we kind of cursed at a single guy for not being able to roll a die. multiple
And it wasn't
times
you
in a
this
row.
time. I'm so proud.
Yeah, he's not here now.
Yeah, he can't defend himself.
You know who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the games, it went down to final mission, and its threat level being really high, one more success being required, everything tapped out. So, I'm sorry, everything exhausted. So all card special effects were in constant use. So it's not like you rack up these abilities and you never really use them, and it literally came down to that one die roll being all right, and yeah, that's really cool. And it felt for some games or for one game we started and said, yeah, this actually looks pretty good. We got everything under control. Then crises. Like, what the?
We went from empty skies to full skies and every continent driven into the red and no interceptors left and satellites exhausted. It was crazy.
There's a certain amount of dread going on with the game. And on the contrary, we had that thing where we thought, okay, this is the game we're going to lose. But then we kind of were able to sustain through that, and the final mission unlocked, and then all in, and
it led to some interesting choices in our resource allocation.
Yeah.
What we were going to do, and kind of abandoning. It's like, okay, we don't need more science at this point. We need to spend our money on the soldiers and the interceptors. And,
min-max the thing. Yeah. I think the as you said, if there's an expansion plan, Fantasy Flight Games, I'd love to see the soldier personalization facet, which I think is a big thing in the video game. And that might be a great thing here. I understand that the science thing kind of covers that by giving roles different abilities by personalizing the roles. But then again, we want more than a little token that says this is an elite sniper. I want jetpack elite sniper with.
There's only 4 of the elites. You can't make any other elites, right? So would be good. So are you going to paint the minis?
I was considering it. They're really nice looking, and I think if you pick up one of the color schemes from the video game, that could add to that. It is surprisingly it is useful to have those at least in very clear colors, because the board is very colorful and things might get lost looking at that. But yeah, that I probably will settle down and paint them.
Yay! Good answer. Very happy with that. So I guess we're done. If you have any questions, any comments, anything, let us know in the comment section below. Otherwise, like or share this video. It would help a lot. And if you haven't already, why not subscribe, right? We got a lot of art, board game and cooking videos for you on this lovely channel. All the important things: cooking, art, and board gaming. Come on, this is all you need to survive, right?
Yeah.
So thanks again for watching. Have a good one. Happy Sunday. See you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.